Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Travis John back again to, talk about music I enjoy. So, thank you to whoever watched the last one, whoever enjoyed just me sort of rambling on about, uh, I think, yeah, it was mostly on improvised music, free jazz, whatever you want to call it. Black art, which is what it purely is. Anyway, today I want to talk about that again. I want to talk about it more because I love that kind of music. I want to talk about it again. Specifically, the label, like one of my favorite labels from this kind of music, and just music in general. One of my favorite art labels, ESP Disc, which I am a huge fan of. Have been a huge fan of since about 2019. Remember, I'm kind of, I'm a younger cat. I'm just kind of getting into a lot of this music and have been very quick with it. I'll give myself that. I found a lot during the time, but ESP Disc was probably my gateway into this music. Started with the Giuseppe Logan Quartet record, which in turn was how I found Don Pullen and Milford Graves, who I mentioned in the last one as being two of my all-time favorite musicians of their respective instruments, drums and piano. But before that, I guess I'll mention what I've been listening to recently. I have been listening to one record that is on ESP Disc, which I'll probably mention again, the Marzette Watts and Company. Marzette Watts, I think, ensemble. I'm gonna say ensemble for right now because I'm not really too sure how many people it was. Well, there was Marzette Watts. Obviously, he leads the record, and it was Bayard Lancaster and J.C. Moses on drums, Clifford Thornton on cornet, Bayard Lancaster. I don't know if I already said that, but he was on bass clarinet and alto. Marzette on tenors also. Carl Berger on vibraphone, classic. Sonny Chirac on guitar, obviously. Henry Grimes on bass, and Junie Booth, who I've met before. He's a very nice man who plays on the third track, Backdrop for Urban Revolution. He plays bass on that. So yeah, there's about 9 people. I'm just gonna say ensemble. But it just says and company. So anyway, that record is fantastic. Showcases each of these players like notions, like musical notions. Like I have this when I'm listening to this kind of music. It's like you can tell who's playing what. To some people, it might just sound like unbridled chaos or just like really soothing and then really soothing to chaotic sort of melodies or whatever. But when you listen to this music so much, almost every day, you start to realize who's who and their little musical notions, like, and just how their overall atmosphere of their music sounds to me. Take Sonny Chirac on this record, for instance. Sonny Chirac is usually very, somewhat calm, but he's very sharp and just very jagged with his playing on this particular record. It's one of the first he played on. And then obviously there was Black Woman and Monkey Pocky Boo and Ask the Ages with Pharaoh, which are classics. And his playing is very jagged and as well on those. But on those three records, there's a much more soothing, personal nature to it. But on the Marzette Watts, he goes all out, like it's crazy. And then Carl Berger is also very crazy when he's usually very laid back, also kind of chilling with his with the vibraphone sounds. And the third track, Backdrop for Urban Revolution, is insane just because it's just a culmination of all these groups, all these musicians coming together to just create what I think is an accurate description of the title. It sounds representing this sort of revolution and especially black revolutionists and groups like the Black Panthers, obviously, and rioters and people who want a better change for this world, and specifically black people and their rights in this world, especially during the time. I believe it came out in 1967. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but just listen to it. It's so accurate. to just everything that's going on now and even back then with a bunch of the revolution stuff, people trying to change this world order for the betterment of black people. But it just sounds so absolutely accurate because it sounds just like absolute madness and chaos, um, which I don't really like any. I don't like chaos. I certainly want equal rights and, for black people to be treated as they should be. Some of the, greatest beings of all time, and a lot of people do see black people like that, but not the world, the world order, obviously not. So, of course, there has to be revolutions and, you know, what is it called, militias and all that. Sorry, the word blanked out for a second. Militias, yes, and the groups like that, who just want to see black people thriving in this world that just wants to pretty much throw us down, and that music just represents that anger, that fueling anger, and the want to express it, and they express it in such a natural way. Even though I'm pretty sure the only white player in that group is Carl Berger, but it doesn't even matter about the musicians. It's still very respectable, and white musicians playing this kind of music. It's pretty much jazz is purely black art, and any white musician, they're playing black art, so it's like they're still respecting that. So you already know they're good. So anyway, I think that track in particular is fantastic. Represents just all of it. Even in recent times, I guess we can all relate to. Um, it sounds so accurate to that. So check out the Marzai Watts. I've also been listening to the Theater of Eternal Music, which has Lamont Young, John Cale, Tony Conrad, Marion. Don't even remember her last name. And there was a drummer, and his name also kind of doesn't come to mind now. But I guess that's just because I was only ever indulging in Young, Cale, and Conrad, because obviously those are the three you hear about the most, and they have very extensive discographies. And John Cale I've always been a fan of since like 2018 or something, because of Velvet Underground, right? Even before that, maybe. Velvet Underground was always a favorite of mine. And Tony Conrad I found last year or the year before that because of his record with Faust. And Lamont Young I found out about last year. Lamont Young, all three are amazing, like minimalist composers. John Cale is, versatile with all styles of music, but the stuff they did together was really magical, and can honestly say it's like the most perfect music that I've heard so far. Not music doesn't really need to be quote perfect for me, but I don't know. It's just something I want to hear all the time. Not even just because of how minimal. It's just minimal and beautiful, and just enwraps yourself into your core, like your whole body just fuses into you. I love the recordings where Lamont Young is playing soprano. Then Conrad and Cale were doing the drone in the background. Sorry, that was my speaker going off. And then there's the drone, and then there's the hand drums that's usually there, and then Lamont Young's wife is usually doing the droning voice thing. I've been listening to a lot of pieces like that, and it's all really beautiful. Theater of Eternal Music. I'd love to own some of that work on vinyl, but until there's official pressings, it'll probably take a while. But yeah, I've been listening to mostly that, and back to what the topic is about, the ESP disc label. I found them in 2019, and it's because I saw an Instagram post. This is an Instagram page that I follow called Musical Charts that recommends albums on his story, and he recommended the Giuseppe Logan Quartet. And since I've been meaning to get into free jazz, whatever. I listened to it, and I was really blown away. And that was like I said, 2019, very early on, very early 2019, and it was spectacular. There was Milford Graves on it, and that was the first time I heard him and Don Pullen together. And even that just blew my tiny mind, like fragmented what jazz was, like blown out the window, even before like Miles Davis not before, it was Miles Davis before, and then Giuseppe Logan, and then Coltrane. But that Giuseppe Logan quartet one was important because then I found out, oh, what is this? The cover looks crazy, and then I look, and then the back cover it says like ESP disc on it, and then on the label it says ESP disc, like on the label of the record. Um, and then I found it, and I was like, oh, this is I didn't know there were even separate labels for this sort of subgenre of music. So I looked it up. I looked on YouTube, and every time I find a new label, especially even since then, I just kept going on with this. I always look them up and see what other releases they have. So I looked on that, and I found tons of legendary artists: Milford Graves, Gatto Barbieri, Sonny Murray, Marion Brown. Marion Brown was the second. Marion Brown Quartet was the second one I listened to from ESP, which also really blew me away because that album is crazy. Like a lot of like model jazz, whatever notions in it, but it's crazy. Marion's playing is amazing. There's also James Etro and Bob James and who else? Lowell Davidson, and like I mentioned, Marzette Watts. Some people on that record also released on ESP. I know Carl Berger did, and an artist, Noah Howard, released his quartet record and his live album. Both are two of my all-time favorite like improvised releases, and very underrated. Rick Kolbeck is a trumpeter who I've recently started to get into, and I found him because of those recordings. ESP Disc was started by Bernard Stolman, I believe, in 1966, and it was meant to be a sort of forefront for this type of music. I didn't mention him for some reason. Most would probably mention him first off before any of the underrated artists that I said. Albert Eiler, who is an essential saxophonist for me, and pretty much anyone who likes this kind of music. Even if you don't really like the improvised stuff too much, you probably know who Albert Eiler is, right? And his first record, Spiritual Unity, was also recorded for ESP Disc. It was the first one, and it was because Bernard Stolman saw a show of his, and he contacted him and was like, "Yo, could you record this record to get my label going?" And label kind of started, and it's still going on today. Sadly, Mr. Stolman has passed away. Rest in peace to him, along with many of the musicians who recorded under that label, the older days. But there are many people who still record for that label. I would love to record a record for that label eventually. Do a sort of like a quartet record, record it for ESP. They release a couple CDs or vinyl or whatever. Would love to. That'd be crazy. That'd be a dream because, yeah, like I mentioned, they're one of my favorite labels. They are my favorite label of all time. Them and BYG Actuel. But I'm going to talk about them another day because that'll probably be even longer talk. But, no, ESP Disc are fantastic. They really allowed a lot of freedom to the artists. It's just a way to sort of support that kind of music. And it's so important that all this is documented because even though it's not the most popular thing ever, there will always be people who support it, who find the purity and passion and unbridled like emotions pent up into these instruments just recorded and released so you can understand these people. It's a form of communication, this kind of music to me. especially when it's duos. But when it's an orchestra or big ensemble thing, it's more interesting because it's like in a group setting, it's a wide conversation. But when it's two people, it just feels more intimate to me, and I prefer that intimacy. But I love, group orchestra stuff. I love Mars and Watts, Sakoto Fuji has a bunch, orchestra stuff. Uh, this one, Yosuke Yamashita Trio with Gerald Yoshida and this other group, Arashi the Record. Man, there's a lot of great group, sort of works like that are unifying and does feel like a conversation. But when it's a duo, it's just a whole different story, and I appreciate it more so from that front. I guess I'll talk about some of my favorites on the ESP label, my 5 favorites. The Giuseppe Logan, I already told you, that's my favorite, and I already told y'all about how I found it. Another being the Marzette. I'll talk about In Search of the Mystery by Gato Barbieri. Another early one that I found. It was interesting is this Brazilian saxophonist, usually known for like fusion records, but he did this one, and it just felt so free and so out in the open. Like envision like a field of like, with the sun gazing onto him, and he's just going on and on. It's beautiful. I haven't listened to it in a while, but when I can still remember the initial feelings hearing it, and it was beautiful. Gato Barbieri, In Search of the Mystery, and also Milford Graves' percussion ensemble, which is, well, it's just him and Sonny Morgan, but it's a great testament to both of those drummers and just how brilliant they are in their respective fields, especially Milford Graves. That one was the one that got me into Milford Graves, but I heard him. I knew he was on the Giuseppe Logan, but then I saw the percussion ensemble. I was like, wow, this guy's onto something, and now I am starting to understand what it is, even though I don't know everything about Milford Graves. I know how he thinks about music, his notions, his musical notions, how just sort of very African it all feels, very purely black it all feels, and his stances on African culture and all that. But I don't know everything about him and about his playing and how he does the things he does. Like, I don't want to be like Milford Graves, obviously, if I play percussion or whatever, but he's definitely given me a much more refined love for it. Him and Andrew Cyril, and even Tony Oxley to the same extent. Rashid Ali as well. Rashid Ali, love, he's in the quartet with, he was in that John Coltrane, one of his last groups, and he did a duo. He did 2 duos I heard quite recently in the year, Duo Exchange, and the one with Leroy Jenkins I loved a lot. I actually heard the one with Leroy Jenkins yesterday. Incredible. What you can do with just a drum and a violin is remarkable. But no, the ESP label I think has so many releases. Sadly, I don't own too many from them, and I don't even have my collection on me right now, so I can't even show you the one I had. Actually, no, even then I did show it already. The Albert Island Prophecy, I showed it last time, and the next one is this Marzette Watts and Company, which I ordered a while ago, which I'm looking forward to receiving. Anyway, yeah, I pretty much just wanted to express not even in-depth thoughts about the label, not too much information, because there's a bunch of stuff I want to look into, but just some of my favorite releases. I don't know. Just love talking about this music. Just something I enjoy doing, and if you enjoy hearing me talk about it, then it's all love all around. All love all around. Next videos, I might talk about more labels I enjoy, Cubico, or I might just focus on one particular record or artist, or I might just go on and on about whatever. But thank you very much to whoever watched, and I hope to see you, tomorrow for the next one. I'll do another one tomorrow on whatever, it's taking the improvised notions everywhere. Just do it as you feel. Anyway, have a good night, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening. Peace.